are you?
Good.
All right, so give it a few more minutes. There was a new link that was sent out. The other one, I eventually got in, but oh God, we had to go through like a couple loopholes to get in. But thank you for a team for acting quickly. Jared for notifying them as well. I think you notified them right before I was able to, which was great. So thank you for that as well. Okay. All right, I'm gonna give it one more minute before we start. Giving some time to people to adjust to the new link, okay? Okay, it is 7:05. Welcome to the special work session at Mayor and Council for CMR Rainier. This is a virtual work session for today, May 30, 2023 at 7 p.m. I'll be calling to order. Valerie Woodall.
I'm here.
Jared Stofus.
I'm here.
Luke Cheswick.
Here.
Danielle Carr.
Here.
All right, so we have a full quorum. Item number 2 is review of the agenda. Luke, can you go ahead and read the whole agenda, please?
1, call to order. 2, review of agenda. Mayor and council review the agenda for the meeting, adding or deleting topics of interest or discussion. 3, presentation and discussion on the city's Vision Zero Action Plan. Tool Design Group will present the city's Vision Zero Action Plan. 4, discussion on the legislative meeting calendar. We'll have a discussion on the FY24 legislative calendar. 5, adjournment.
Thank you so much. So council, you have heard a clear review of the agenda. Is there anything you would like to delete or add to this agenda at this moment?
No, I'm good with it.
Thank you, Luke. You guys could give thumbs up and we'll move on. Good, Valerie, Jared, good. All right, so I'm seeing how whoever answer. All right, moving on to the next item. Presentation and discussion, the city's Vision Zero Action Plan. This is a 30-minute item. The tool design will present to the city's Vision Zero Action Plan for the mayor and council. Just as a reminder, we've been having multiple meetings, both the group meeting as well as open meetings. This is one of the open meetings before we bring it to the whole body once again on our June meeting to ideally for a vote, am I correct? Both Luke and Jared have been representing us as part of the council and along with our whole entire team. All right, so thank you both, Jared and Luke, for your work on this effort. I know that Jared and I have been doing separate efforts when it comes to letters of support and working on that field as well. So all the joyful and exciting things to do with this. As a reminder to the members of the public, the presentation is going to be given. It will not take 30 minutes for the whole presentation. 30 minutes includes the Q&A. If you'd like to speak, go ahead and write your first name, last name, your block number, your street number. You have 3 minutes to speak. If you're here to speak on behalf of the group, you have to be recognized first of all by the group. You have 5 minutes, but that means that everybody in the group will forfeit their time to speak. All right. So saying that, I would like to ask the representative for Tool Design to present themselves work here. You guys could start the presentation. I do see Dan and I think Jim is also here if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everybody for having us tonight. My name is Dan Goodman. I'm the Director of Planning for the Mid-Atlantic region at Tool Design Group, also serving as the Project Manager for the City of Mount Rainier's Vision Zero Action Plan. As a quick orientation and reminder, we are working with the city to create a Vision Zero safety action plan. The focus of the plan is to prioritize safety with the goal of helping the city achieve and maintain zero fatalities and serious injuries in the transportation system. So we are thinking and talking about all modes of transportation, including people walking, biking, driving, taking transit, and using micromobility. As a general kind of orientation of this effort, we are moving with pace on behalf of the city to try to complete the Vision Zero action plan by the end of June, so that we can enable the city to pursue federal funding for transportation safety improvements through the Safer Streets for All program, which is a new US DOT federal program focused on helping local, regional, and state jurisdictions improve safety, largely by implementing complete streets improvements that are specifically directed at achieving a safer system for all users, as I said. And so a big part of this effort is to undertake an analysis of the crash data in Mount Rainier, and then think about the top priorities that the city can pursue to respond to that crash data. So that is what we are working on. Now we had understood and assumed with everybody else around the country that this grant program would be actually due in the fall, later in September. And we did receive kind of somewhat of a surprise from USDOT in that the grant applications are actually due in July. So it is a lot faster than we anticipated, but we are working really closely with a task force to really move as quickly as we can to get this part of the project completed, so that then the city can go on and write the grant and submit the grant in the middle of July. And that's why we are moving pretty quickly on this project. That said, we have been working on the project since towards the end of last summer. We did an extensive existing conditions analysis over the course of the fall. We did a community survey, we did a public meeting, we did a lot of stakeholder engagement meetings in the first part of the project when it was more of a sidewalk and multimodal improvement plan. And then about halfway through, we pivoted in order to be able to adjust the process to serve as a Vision Zero safety action plan. And so that's what we've been doing since really the beginning of the year. And since that time, we've met 3 times with the local Vision Zero task force. We've had council representatives and city staff representatives on that task force. And we've reviewed the safety analysis. We've talked about it. We've built it into the document. We also had a public meeting on May 13 where we presented a lot of these same ideas that you'll see. Because we are focused on the document and trying to keep all of our collective focus on this document, what we would like to do is focus on the document rather than a separate PowerPoint. And so that's what we will do as part of this presentation. And if I can share my screen, or would you like to use the version that is on, and just if somebody could scroll for me, that would be helpful. Or I can share my screen. It's the same document. What would you prefer?
Pink or Jared, can you guys let Dan the capability to share, please?
Will do, Mayor.
Thank you. So Dan, they'll grant your sharing capabilities, okay?
Okay, great. And as I jump in, I want to make sure folks are aware also we've got Jim Elliott and Jay Swiderski also on the Mid-Atlantic Regional Planning team from Tool Design Group joining me here today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you see that now? Okay. Just if I could get a thumbs up. Do you see this now? Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of the document, and I would encourage any feedback you can provide either as I go or in the chat would be appreciated. So this is the draft document that we've shared with the city. And I'll do a quick orientation of the overall table of contents, and then we'll go through and stop on a few pieces, but going pretty quickly, recognizing that we only have 30 minutes. The beginning of the document, we talk about the plan purpose, the city's commitment and the goals, how those kind of city commitment and goals are nested within broader Maryland SHA and Prince George's County goals and commitments. We highlight and summarize the public engagement process that we've been through to get to this point, including a set of key challenges that we've distilled from our existing conditions analysis and public feedback. And then we talk about what Vision Zero is and what the safe system approach entails. And then a big part of the document is an assessment of the findings from the crash analysis that we've done. And so there is a summary analysis of that, and I'll talk a little bit more as we go on that. The most important part of the project, though, is based on those results of that crash analysis, how is Mount Rainier going to achieve and maintain Vision Zero? And we've categorized that by actions, including safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and post-crash care. So those are kind of how we're organizing the bundle of recommendations in the document. And then we also lay out a set of potential projects that, again, respond to the crash analysis. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these topics. The last one is monitoring progress toward Vision Zero and performance measures. And again, I'll talk a little bit more as I go through the process. So we've got just in the first couple pages, we've got an acknowledgement of the traditional territory of the Native American territories in this area. And we've got a dedication to people in Mount Rainier and the DC area that have been affected by transportation safety issues. We're setting up the overall project here with an emphasis on the City Council's resolution that the City Council adopted in January, which notes that the city adopts a goal of eliminating traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2040 and endorses a Vision Zero as a commitment and collaborative approach that will involve all city departments to achieve this goal. So it's a fundamentally different way to think about transportation in that we all share a responsibility for achieving Vision Zero. And it is something that communities are doing around the US and internationally to really important results. Now we've developed a set of goals, again, through a collaboration with the public and our task force and stakeholders, which we've written out there, and I won't go into detail about every single one, but it's prioritizing the safety of children traveling in Mount Rainier. We're improving access to things like transit, implementing a holistic approach, centering equity, providing leadership in interjurisdictional coordination, so really stepping forward into the collaboration with people like SHA and DDOT and other adjacent jurisdictions, redesigning public infrastructure to make it more walkable and bikeable and sustainable, and focusing attention based on crash analysis results. So I mentioned the agency and the community commitment. So we've got a brief narrative about the City Council's resolution committing to Vision Zero, which is a requirement of a pursuit of SS4A, that we've got a jurisdictional commitment to this policy and this approach moving forward. And we also wanted to show that it's, the City Council is providing leadership, and there's also an important kind of rising community commitment to this concept. And so we do that by talking as one example about the community walk on Eastern Avenue, which I think a lot of folks here were involved in, that included the Prince George's County Council member, the District of Columbia Council member, Mount Rainier Council members, members of the public, to really note that this is a collaborative shared goal and that the city is working on. The state of Maryland and Prince George's County have similar commitments to Vision Zero, and so this project is nested within those broader jurisdictions. It aligns with those goals, and it is kind of supportive of those goals and will help to achieve the county and the state's goals. I mentioned that we've done extensive public engagement as part of this, so the next part of the document just kind of lists out and discusses briefly the community survey, the public meetings, the focus group meetings, the task force meetings, and city council engagement that we've done as part of this process. And now I want to emphasize here that this is a summary document, and we have a detailed existing conditions document that will be provided as an appendix to this document with, for example, detailed results from the community survey. So all of that will continue to inform the recommendations and the specific projects moving forward, and is documented in an appendix to this plan. So I mentioned planning context and key challenges. That's part of the thing that we want to focus on is what is the challenge, what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And so some of these key challenges came directly out of the public engagement and the task force engagement. We did meet with the task force for the third time last week, and we've incorporated what we heard there. And we would love to incorporate what we hear as a result of this meeting. We've also pulled in quotes from the survey anonymously, but quotes that kind of emphasize and localize some of what we're talking about in the plan narrative. And then we've got, a one-page graphic that just really summarizes the whole study process from beginning to end. The next part is just a few pages kind of on what Vision Zero is and what it includes. It's an important piece to just kind of set the stage for the recommendations that will come. We also talk briefly about safe systems elements because they're going to be pieces of the city's work moving forward. I'll emphasize here also that these are coming directly from USDOT, and so we're building the plan around a framework that USDOT has recommended. And so we're organizing, as an example, we're organizing our recommendations in this plan in the way that USDOT organizes their framework for Vision Zero: safe users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, and such. And please stop me if you need to. I know I'm going fast, but I'm trying to get through everything in a relatively short amount of time. So part 2 is the assessment of the crash analysis findings. We've got kind of a summary. We have a detailed memo that includes the more extensive analysis of this that we'll be providing also as an appendix. But this, because of the time constraints, we want to focus on the actual summary key findings. And so that's what we're doing in this document. We've walked through this a couple times with the task force and collected feedback. And I will say that we are continuing to update these crash analysis findings. We're going to continue to try to streamline and focus as much as we can on the key findings. And then we may end up pushing a little bit more of the detail over to the detailed appendix, just so we can stay focused in the Vision Zero action plan on just the things that are most important for the recommendations that will follow. And I won't go into the detail of the crash analysis because I think it's most important for us to talk about the recommendations coming out of this. One of the things I will mention that we have a high injury network. So we've used the crash analysis data really think about the locations and the corridors where the most crash issues are occurring. And you'll see when we talk about the recommended projects that we're also focusing on a lot of those same places. And that's by design, because we want to focus our recommendations and our infrastructure investments on the places where the issues are most likely to occur. And there's just it's about, I think about six to 8 pages of key findings on the crash analysis. And then the next part is the recommendation. So probably the most important part to focus on here. So this is where, again, we're organizing the actions by the categories of kind of USDOT's recommended approach. And the first one is safe road users. And I want to ask Jim Elliott if he might be able to walk us through just really briefly the top line recommendation within each category. Jim?
Yeah, so under safe road users, there are 2 recommendations. One is to expand the Safe Routes to School programs at each of the schools, and there are several recommended steps that could be taken related to that. And then the second one is to implement a driver safety education campaign. And this one, we are thinking we should update this recommendation to recommend coordination with the regional Street Smart program as part of this recommendation. Okay. And then the next set of recommendations relates to safe vehicles. And this is driven by the recognition that that larger and larger vehicles are a significant part of the safety issue nationwide, because they have more mass, they create more damage when they're in a crash. So probably the top line recommendation here is to discourage through truck traffic, and through a variety of means, including signage, traffic calming, etc. So we've named some specific streets that have been that were elevated as a focus. Let's see. Scrolling on down. Do you want me to go through? You want me to just talk about the top line?
Yeah, the top line
for each.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, and just mention each one really briefly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. So the second one under that is to require large vehicles owned or operated by or on behalf of the city to be fitted with side underrun guards. These are guards that prevent a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or a motorcyclist from being trapped underneath a large truck. The third recommendation is to purchase safer city vehicles, so that is as vehicles that the city owns wear out or become obsolete, the city replaces them with vehicles that are safer, that are lighter, that have a lower profile, that have better visibility between pedestrians and drivers. And the final one is to take action to encourage use of safer and more sustainable modes. And there are a variety of kind of sub-recommendations related to that, including coordinating with WMATA and Prince George's County, the bus, to increase the frequency and reliability of public transit service in the city. And then down to safe speeds. The most important recommendation is to reduce speeds on all local streets to 20 miles per hour. Second recommendation is to implement automated speed enforcement on residential streets. And the third is to explore applying school zone speed limits to additional street segments near Mount Rainier Elementary School and Thomas Stone Elementary School. And finally, for any installations that are any automated speed enforcement installations that are made, to consider pairing a speed feedback sign with it to inform drivers of their speed. The goal of implementing the automated speed enforcement and also the speed feedback signs is to change behavior. We in a previous meeting, one of the task force members mentioned that they didn't want this to be a kind of a gotcha kind of thing. So that's why that recommendation is in there. Under safe roads, there's a recommendation to implement high visibility crosswalks. Those are that's crosswalks. There's a specific style that's recommended here called the ladder style crosswalk, which is a crosswalk style that you see in Washington, D.C. It includes both parallel lines and transverse lines like a ladder. And those are more visible crosswalks. So recommending those at all locations along the high injury network and at locations where there have been fatal and serious injury pedestrian crashes, and then doing sort of the remaining crosswalks on within 500 feet of a school or a park. So that's a recommendation that's an adjustment to this that we are considering recommending here. Then the next one, intersection daylighting. So that is making it easier for drivers and crossing pedestrians and bicyclists to see each other at the intersection, and also other vehicle drivers, motor vehicle drivers, and usually involves some kind of physical measure to restrict parking near an intersection and or a parking restriction sign. So that is recommended here as well, along the high injury network, and then also this is an adjustment from the version that we sent to the council in the next 5 years after the first 5, between years 5 and 10, within 500 feet of a school or a park at locations that are off the high injury network. And then the third recommendation here is to implement gateway treatments at entry locations to the city. So gateway treatments can include a variety of different measures. They often include curb extensions, signage to warn of a changing speed limit, and other measures to signal to drivers that they need to slow down. So we're recommending this at several intersections, and this is where we may recommend an adjustment in an updated draft of this to focus on a few intersections within the first 5 years. The top priority intersections may be Chilham Road south of Queens Chapel Road, Varnum Road, or Varnum Street rather, east of Eastern Avenue, and Bunker Hill Road east of Eastern Avenue. And then there are another 4 roads or locations where we would recommend gateway treatments as well. Leading pedestrian intervals and no right turn red. Within the next 5 years, the city will coordinate implementation of these on the high injury network at all signalized intersections. And then finally, street lighting. Within the next 5 years, the city will review lighting for all parts of the high injury network, ensuring adequate illumination of both streets and sidewalks, and upgrading lighting where deficiencies are identified. And then we also recommend several roadway policies. One is a traffic calming plan. The city will develop a comprehensive plan for area-wide traffic calming for streets within the city of Mount Rainier that prioritizes high injury network segments, transitions from arterial to collector streets to local streets, and routes to schools and parks. Another policy recommendation is to develop a sidewalk repair policy. that divides the city up into sidewalk repair zones and ensures that all sidewalks in each zone are inspected and repaired at least once every 10 years. And with that, there's also a recommendation in here to develop a sidewalk maintenance policy and to conduct a property owner outreach campaign about that policy. Prioritizing green infrastructure co-benefits, that's been an important priority for the city, and we've incorporated it here as well. So any safety measures that are implemented would be looked at to determine whether there are ways to also incorporate green infrastructure into those implementations. And then finally, post-crash care. One is to improve crash and injury reporting and analysis. And the second one is to provide traffic incident management training to first responders.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jim. I'll wrap up here in just a couple minutes. I'll mention the project action plan. So these are specific projects that we would set up and that the city would be pursuing federal funding to implement. And the thing that I want to emphasize here is that we haven't designed all the details of this. That would happen more in the engineering and design process. Right now, it's trying to focus on the priority locations and priority corridors. So the first one is Chillum Road, basically improving the connection between the metro and Mount Rainier, specifically to Queens Chapel. And we've got some additional detail on that. But the basic concept is recommending that we go from 4 travel lanes, 2 in each direction, to 3, called a road diet. So you'd have 1 lane in each direction with a center turn lane and protected bike infrastructure. Again, specifically responding to the results of the crash analysis and also trying to improve the connection between the city and transit. The second project is on Chillum Road, traffic calming specifically, but a range of traffic calming and bike boulevard type treatments. The third project is on Arundel Road, again, trying to tighten up the cross section to provide better pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, but also importantly to slow motor vehicle traffic so that it's safer and more comfortable for everyone. The fourth project is on 31st Street, a bike boulevard, which is a combination of treatments like traffic circles or neck downs or curb extensions to make that a desirable bicycle route and also to slow down traffic, slow down the speed to improve the safety of everyone. There's on Bunker Hill doing some modifications to improve the way that the transportation network and the street meets the needs of all users. 30th Street is another option for what we call a bike boulevard, which still provides access and connectivity for all modes, including driving, but it tries to balance the needs of all users. Queens Chapel Road, we know there's a big SHA project on Queens Chapel, and so the recommendation here is to make minor adjustments on top of those existing improvements that are going to improve safety, we believe, at a really important crash location. Eastern Avenue, the recommendation is to coordinate with DDOT and the county council kind of as follow-up to that walk to help achieve safety improvements that were identified through that community collaboration. And then the 9th one is systemic safety improvements, which Jim described previously. So we've got a map of these locations, again, not making all the designs just yet.
Dan,
what's up?
Give me 1 second. Council, can I go ahead and ask you guys to put 20 minutes more to this item?
So moved. Seconded.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Discussion, abstention, objection, hearing none. All right, Dan, we have 20 more minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. We like to include a transformative action in a Vision Zero action plan. And so this is the section of Chillum Road that we talked about. It is on the high injury network. So that means that there are, of all the crashes that are occurring in the city, this is a very important location to focus on. And so I mentioned that there's 4 motor vehicle travel lanes, 2 in each direction. And the concept that we'd like to propose and explore further in coordination with you all is something like this. And this is just a concept, again, has not gone through design and engineering yet, but would have 3 motor vehicle lanes, 1 in each direction with a center turn lane and protected bike infrastructure. And now a couple things I want to emphasize about that is it improves the connection, and we know now the safety of the bicyclists, but it's not just about the bikes. It makes it safer for everyone. So a cross section like this will slow down motor vehicle traffic. Often it sounds counterintuitive, but often the 3 travel lanes can actually move just as much traffic as 4 travel lanes because there's less backup behind a car turning left. The car turning left can get out of the way, and that can improve operations for motor vehicles. But I think one of the most important things for me on a cross section like this is that the protected bike infrastructure also has the effect of making it safer and more comfortable for pedestrians on the sidewalk, because you're bumping away what can be fast-moving motor vehicle traffic. You're nudging it away from pedestrians walking on the sidewalk that can have an important safety benefit. So that's just a concept that we're proposing. There's a countermeasure toolkit that we'll be working on after this part of the project is done, where we'll go in and provide details, kind of design details about a specific set of, we call them countermeasures, which are things, infrastructure design improvements that respond, kind of counter a specific safety issue that we know happens in the transportation system. And so we've got a list of them in this document because it's a summary, but we've got in our study process a plan to develop these out more over the course of the summer in consultation with the city. For now, we have a summary list with some examples, and we've got some narrative about community engagement moving forward. The last part of the document is a set on performance measures. How will we track progress towards change, and what would that look like? How do we know that we're succeeding as part of the Vision Zero commitment? And that includes kind of an annual report back to the community about how much of this stuff was completed. And obviously, a lot of that will depend on whether the city gets the federal funding to do this stuff, but we do think it's a very compelling case. And so if the city got that funding, it would be obviously in a much stronger position to implement a lot of the ideas that we talk about here, and that's the goal. And that's a summary overview of the document. So we wanted to walk that through and do a kind of a page turn with you all. And now I'd like to stop and give folks a chance to comment or ask questions on what you've seen so far.
Thank you so much, Dan and Tilda-Stein. So I'm going to start with Luke and Jared. So I know you guys are part of the task force. If you guys want to add anything that you guys see or anything that we should know as we move forward with this document, go ahead.
No, I don't want to take up too much time, but I just appreciate all the work you've done getting this to us, and appreciate how much input you guys sort of have considered in this process. I know this goes back quite a ways in trying to figure out what's the best use of the city's investments here in this phase. And I'm just looking forward to, getting a good grant application together so we can get the money that we'll need to actually implement all of this. And then as we move out through the summer, getting some more specific designs for some of these locations, I think that's going to be really important. I think some people are very interested in making sure that happens sooner rather than later. So just appreciate all the work you did, and I don't want to hold it up any longer. Make sure other people get chances to talk.
You went out in 5 minutes, Luke. You're just as bad as Jared. Jared, go ahead.
Luke literally said all the things I'm going to say, so I will cede my time to let folks in the community provide some thoughts and input.
Perfect. Thank you. After we open it up, I need you guys to pretty much give us a lay with what it will look like, not just the application process, but when it comes to helping the community also understand when it comes to what the matches for federal grant looks like. I think there's been a bit of confusion of, why are we applying for this money and what equivalent it will look like and what are they offering, and to clarify it also what we cannot match with. So I need to make sure that's covered as well. If you, Luke or Jared, you guys could address that as well, okay? All right, Valerie, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is a pretty comprehensive section of the street and sidewalks study that you guys are all doing, and I think it's an important one. I don't want to spend much time. I think most of it has been, everything that I've thought about has been basically covered in here. I do find it interesting that crash data is showing that summer, fall, and midwinter, but not springtime is when people run into crashes. So that's interesting to me. I would like to see in the future just page numbers, if we can have those, just so I can reference them going forward as well. But other than that, I think this is a pretty comprehensive section of that study, and thank you for working on this. I look forward to getting that funding so we can really make some improvements for our city.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Danielle?
Yes, hi, I'm the new kid on the block. We haven't met. I've been to a couple of the meetings and listened to a lot of what the people in the community have said, and I want to thank you as well for doing this. I do have a couple of questions because I'm new to this whole process. This is all new. I was going to talk to a couple of people about what this whole thing was, but never got back to me. But I have a question about the road diet on Chillum Road. As somebody, I've traveled on that Chillum Road a lot with the left turn and the one lane straight into Mount Rainier, and then the right turn there. And if we, remove the right turn, no turn on right, how is narrowing it down to 2 lanes, one coming and one going to benefit the traffic at the higher times of the day, which would be rush hour in the morning, rush hour in the evening, and then that midday rush? Also, my question about the bike paths there on Chillum Road, we already have a bike path that my partner he takes it a lot to West Hyattsville, that goes across over on the other side, doesn't even come into the intersection. So are you recommending that we shift that over to 34th and then force the bikes to go down 34th and Chillum over to West Hyattsville, or are we creating a whole new avenue for bikes? So that's my main question.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, so on the second part of the question, we're proposing to improve the existing bicycle connections and add a new one, and so it's providing a more fine-grained bicycle network, which is the goal. And so we wouldn't be changing or diminishing anything about the existing ones other than to improve conditions there as well. So an example is where the Levee Trail crosses 34th. One of our ideas is to improve and formalize that crossing so that it is a better crossing along the trail. And so it's both, not saying shift the bikers over to this new thing. It's make the existing thing better and also make this option better. So I think that's the first part. On the traffic analysis, we've taken a preliminary look at it. We haven't done an extensive traffic analysis at this point. That's something we would do as part of the design process. We do plan to do that do a bit more of that. And so I don't mean to say that there will be no traffic impact. There are trade-offs when you do things like this. So I think there could be a traffic impact, but there's also a really important safety benefit. And so I think a fundamental part of a Vision Zero plan is that you're trying to improve things for everyone, but you're prioritizing safety. And so a Vision Zero approach would say that even if there is traffic impact, if it improves safety and helps us maintain 0 fatalities and serious injuries, that is more important than accommodating motor vehicle traffic. And so that is part of the Vision Zero approach. that there are trade-offs that are required when we're trying to improve safety.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. As for me, I'll start with the little one. Can you guys make sure just write the city name? You guys keep saying the city. No, the document is driving me a little bit nuts. If you guys put the city of Rainier on, especially as we're going to be submitting the report of different papers, so we know it's been tailored to our city. The other thing, legislative for my team.
I'm sorry, that was on the file name, you mean?
And all over the document, it just says the city.
Yeah. Okay.
So the other thing to address with my colleagues is legislatively. I know we have talked. I know have brought up in the past because I know some of our colleagues, including Riverdale Park, have reduced the speed around the city, and it's something the residents have also. So I think that I'm going to start working on documents to reduce the speed around the city and figure out so we could have that discussion in order to start moving some things along the way. And then we'll have to figure out what exactly we want to do with it. Do we want to do for areas or the whole entire city? If it's the whole entire city, it does benefit. So that was one speed for the whole city. Obviously, the school zones are a little bit more sensitive than others in certain things, but I think that definitely I could start working on that. I had a draft and I already talked to Mayor Thompson from Riverdale about this prior. All right, so you guys are going to be seeing that coming up and figure out like what we can do, when it comes to reducing our speed for the whole entire city and not just sections of the city, because the reality is like that's not going to be maintainable. And at the same time, it avoids the got you equivalent of people feeling like if they're passing by a specific block, they're being targeted instead of like the whole city changing cohesively. Seeing that we have 2 elementary schools, a lot of our city does falls into school safety zones. Okay, so that's something I definitely want to bring to you guys' attention. The other thing is like, even when we look to the list, it definitely looks a lot like we're going to have to work with the city and the county to be able to address some of those locations that are in the outskirts of a city, but are definitely very impacting to us, and figure out, break down the list, what it looks like, for us to be able to work with us, the eastern, obviously, in Chillum area. But then the other streets are internal to us, like what methods we're going to do to go ahead and address those as well. So I think there's 2 approaches to go ahead and fulfill on both of them to make sure there's things that are being done within the city as well as around the city with our partners. Okay. So Dan and Tool Design, great presentation. I did saw that in high school, you guys are working with another collective to make sure that some of the bumps out pedestrian streets, pedestrian sidewalks, right? They had art design. So Luke and team will be good for also to look potentially if like the art commission could take on some of that. I know I sent it out to the collective. I think Valerie did answer, right? But it'll be good to see in order for just to put the little sticks around kind of like what Joe has so people won't drive on it, but to put some artwork on the floor in order to make sure we still stay within the artistic standards of Rainier and at the same time bring awareness to these areas and elongating like especially around the schools when it comes to the safety of people that are walking and biking. So those are like some of the things I want to make sure that we pull out of the report that could be potentially worked on this year, this fiscal year coming up in order for us to like advance this. The other thing is like, although we're aiming at doing the Vision Zero before 2040, just wanted to point out to the community, that is a lot based on how much funding we can match and get to make a lot of these changes happen. Usually we do, Luke or Kamali, is it 6% of the budget that we usually do for street and sidewalks?
Almost.
Between 5 and 6, sometimes been 5, sometimes been 6. So we've been doing this since 18, Luke? Since we got shortly after we got elected, we were putting, we've definitely been putting that money aside every single year in the budget. And that's, to be able to address the first tool design review. And I think that's the reason why we need to make sure that we go after a lot of grants to be able to extend it and get it done before 2040 if possible. But that's some of the challenges we have because a lot of this will cost some money. All right, so I'll leave it like that. And I'll go ahead and open it to the public at this moment. So I will say I do have, so I'm gonna remind you guys as well, if you could put your first, last name, block number and street number, and you have 3 minutes to to say, whatever you need to say if you have any questions. All right, so I'm gonna start with, Steve Domain, 4200 block of 31st Street, followed by Kiara Austin of 4200 block of 31st Street as well. Go ahead, Steve, the mic is yours.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. Just to summarize my comments, we live on the 4200 block of 31st between Upshur and Taylor, just up the block from the food forest, which is a popular gathering point for a lot of the kids and their families on our street. And I do want to say thanks to Tool for all your work. It's much needed to calm the traffic on all the big roads that border our city for sure. But I do want to comment anecdotally on the traffic on the inner streets of our city, especially ours, 31st Street. I can't really see many of my neighbors on the street here, but I do know that I speak for many of them when I say that people fly on 31st Street, I think for two reasons. We have this monstrous hill between Shepherd and Taylor where cars can pick up a ton of speed. And they also blow through the stop sign at Taylor and 31st. I had to look. And I think they also go very quickly because 31st is kind of a cut through from one side of town to the other. And I've said it before, and I'd like to reiterate that if we could use the city of Tacoma Park as an example of how difficult it is to drive through their neighborhood streets. If you've ever driven or tried to drive through Tacoma Park, through their neighborhood streets, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's pretty much impossible to speed through their neighborhood streets because of all the bump outs and the alternate side street parking and the speed tables, et cetera. And like I said a second ago, I speak for a lot of my neighbors on 31st Street when I'm saying all of this. So I know a lot of them would agree. That's all. And thanks again, guys. I really appreciate your work. You folks at Tool and all of our city officials. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Steve. Kiara, the mic is yours, 4200 block of 31st Street. Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you to Tool Design for undertaking the study. Really great updates. I'm in 4200 block of 31st Street, been a resident here for 3 years. A few comments. I strongly recommend that Tool Design physically bike the recommended bike route on 31st. Will less able bikers actually make it up the hills on their own? I can't. Or will they walk it, or more likely, just find a way around it and skip the bike path? Will the biker be able to safely slow down toward the bottom of the hills, or will they race through that stop sign because they have such momentum? And will that lead to an accident? Please test the bike paths for real accessibility and safety before finalizing. I think we all need to consciously avoid thinking of the study and issue as an or situation. I encourage the city and all of us to keep focused and highlight the ands that are possible. Tool Design's great work will help us engage other DC and MDOT stakeholders on the higher impact roadways. And we can improve situations within our control in Mount Rainier, as Tool points out. Even actions like temporary speed bumps in key areas, such as in response to the 2 petitions submitted to the city in 2021 and 2022 from the residents around the highly active 31st Street Park and Food Forest. One was lost, the other unofficially denied due to the upcoming traffic study. The petitions were in response to the wonderful increase in public activity in and around the Food Forest Park. It is a known public safety issue that cars speed along the street, both past the park and through the stop signs at either end. While someone being hit along this corridor has not yet been reported, it certainly has a high probability of happening. We ask for safety measures the same as other parks have. While there may be fewer traffic accidents on the internal roads, some areas are literally an accident waiting to happen. The city doesn't need to let perfect solutions be the enemy of good solutions. Smaller actions now can directly support that future goal. Temporary speed bumps seem to be a possible and inexpensive interim solution and an example of an and situation. I understand that about 20 of the temporary speed bumps can be purchased for $5,000. Seems feasible for Mount Rainier's budget, even with cost of labor, to install. They can be removed during winter months to avoid interfering with potential snowplow work. And they can start protecting residents immediately. And longer term, permanent solutions can be worked on and installed in the coming years. And What is $5,000 compared to someone being hit by a car? I ask that the city honor the two petitions submitted to address speeding by the public park. Thank you very much for your time. And again, thank you to Tool for all of your work.
Thank you so much, Kara. I do see another message from Heather. Heather, would you like to speak? I'm assuming this is Heather Ware. The floor is yours, Heather. Just read your message, Heather. All right, so Heather from the 35th block of Rainier. What about raised pedestrian bridge over the walkway on Queens Chapel Road, like the one in front of PG Plaza, but on the smaller scale on the path? All right, that was your comment. All right, so I have Sarah, 400 block of 36th Street. Go ahead, Sarah. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I just had a couple of comments. First, again, thanks to everyone who has helped pull this study together. It's really great. It's really interesting to see the hotspots and the priorities and some of the ideas. I'm particularly interested in some of the you called like the daylighting or the kind of design choices that would make particularly intersections safer. On our street, we've got 2 T intersections that are stops, and people just drift around them at extremely high speeds sometimes, which is very dangerous, as there is a PG County school bus pickup spot right at the end of one of the streets, and there's usually kids waiting there during the school year in the morning and in the afternoon. So I'm particularly interested to see some of those. And also just wanted to let folks in the city working on this know that the Green Team is always interested in hearing about this and interested in helping with applications for funding as we move forward with some of these projects. That's all.
Thank you so much. Been great partners as well. All right, so I've been informed by the city that time's is up. Can we go ahead and put some time on the clock, please? Give me an option, guys. 20 more minutes, so where are we at? Luke, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we'll add 15 more minutes.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor for 15 more minutes. Is there a second? Properly moved and second. Any discussion? Objection, abstention, hearing none. We're adding 15 more minutes. Pink or Jared, can you guys give me a 5-minute warning when time is up so that way council could decide what they want to do? Okay. All right.
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Who's the one under the city of Rainier? So you, Pink or Jared?
It's me, Mayor.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, so moving on to have Sharnette Robinson, 3500 Perry block. Sharnette, do you want to say it or do you need me to read it? You could just say it if you want. Sharnette, the mic's yours. Okay, so I'll read it. Sharnette, 3500 Perry, thank you. I was not able to wait at the previous meetings. If possible, can bump outs be added along 35 and 3600 blocks of Perry to slow down the speed? All right. So do we have anybody on Facebook with a comment, guys? Jared? And can you guys close everybody else's mics, please? So Jared, Pink, go ahead and close everybody's mic. All right, thank you. So I do not see any comments on the chat. Jared, is anything on Facebook or Pink? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now, but you broke out for a little bit.
Sorry, I was hearing a lot of static back there.
Yeah, I couldn't hear him well either, but he said there's nothing on Facebook. I'm in the office like 2 doors down from him, so I can hear him live. I just couldn't hear him on the
He's
thing.
probably muted because I didn't hear a thing. I do see Pink. So I would like to say, Pink, no comments? Good? Okay, and you
No
Bill
comment
said,
there.
and the one making the comment, Bill, is our grant writer who's also working as part of the task force. They're all various of them are in the building. Perfect. So Heather, I did call you early and I read your question. So Dan, there's a few comments that were made. I don't know if you have time to answer them or incorporate them. How does it work? And I'll add the last one from Heather. Will bumps out affect the lack of parking in the downtown area? Will it take away spaces? She said, I came in late. This is Heather from the 3500 block of the 3700 block of 35th Street. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's less in the kind of downtown area, but a bump out or daylighting, as we've been talking about, could have a small effect on parking because you would be pulling back the parking so that there's not parking right at the intersection. And the reason that we do that is that you increase the visibility for everybody, including pedestrians or children, to better be able to see a car coming up to a stop sign, and for a person driving to better be able to see a pedestrian at the stop sign. So yes, it could have a small impact on parking to pull that parking back from the intersection. But again, it does make it safer and by improving visibility.
All right, perfect. So thank you everybody for the suggestions that you guys put forward. The task team is gonna meet up and work on them as great work as they do, and then incorporate some of them. Also, if you go to the City of Mount Rainier website, there is portal where you could go ahead and put your opinion. That's another way that they have been able to collect information, even if you cannot make the meetings. When is the next scheduled meeting, Luke? I see your mic open.
This is it. We've had our meetings, right, Dan? We're done with the Vision Zero task force meetings. Mm-hmm. This plan will come up for a vote at the next legislative session.
Okay, so I thought you guys had one more meeting at least to tie whatever loose ends was before how do you call it, the big meeting on the 6th. All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Mayor, I didn't know if we wanted to take some time to address some of the comments the residents made, but it might be helpful for folks.
That works. Look, well, that's the reason why I gave Dan the mic. But
yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead and any of you guys could address the various comments that were made. So Luke, Jared, or anybody from To The Sign that has any answer to the comments that were made, please go ahead and address them. But look, if you need to fulfill anything, that works as well, because you guys are part of the task force.
No, I'll let Dan go and then I can speak.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through them. There's a question about a raised pedestrian bridge over Queens Chapel Road, like the one in front of Prince George's Plaza. I think that would be a significant investment of money. It's also very difficult to make that accessible for people with disabilities. And so our preference would be to make the entire street safer to cross at ground level, rather than trying to make something that people could go over at ground level, because it can be very difficult and very expensive to try to make that happen. I'm not seeing additional in the chat.
Go ahead, Luke.
I just something to address kind of comments that Steve and Kira and others have made, just so it's clear for folks. There was a lot of discussion on 31st Street at the Vision Zero Task Force meetings about the bikeway there. We talked at length about, in a couple of meetings, whether it made sense because of the hill. And so the thought process there was, you could change it, you could move it, you could take the bikeway down Taylor, you could move it up 30th, but then 30th dead ends sort of at Bunker Hill. So then you take Bunker Hill over and get down back to 31st in order to connect with Perry. So we thought about that, like going around the hill and making ways to go around the hill. It just became very complicated at that point. And so the decision was made to just kind of keep it as 31st, but the when Tool Design is going to spend the summer sort of coming up with a more detailed plan for these projects right now, because we'll have a little bit of flexibility if we get grant money for how we sort of specifically engineer it and design it. So I think Dan can correct any of this if I'm getting it wrong, but
no, exactly right.
So some of that is sort of up for conversation still, but that's something we're struggling with, is how to get around that hill and maintain the north-south connection, because 31st is a great connection to the bike path by the nature center, and the nature center and the pool, as well as that path connects with Buchanan Street, which has a bike lane, which connects with Chillum and Queens Chapel, which is another bike route. So it's sort of a good connection point all the way through the city. So that's where we are on that. And then I think to Steve's point about like making us like Tacoma Park, I think that's kind of the goal here. And so a lot of the designs that we've talked about, there's sort of two things. One is on the projects that I've identified, there's a lot of those design elements. So maybe like a tiny traffic circle where Upshur and 31st and Rainier hit, to sort of just make it slower to kind of come through that intersection. Same thing might be possible along Thomas Stone Elementary. So on Chillum Road, it's about like, we've talked about like putting parking on, it's on one side, maybe alternating the parking. So it's more like a snake route. So it's just slower to come through. So in addition to all of these like things that we're talking about for the priority projects, Tool Design is also going to work on like a toolbox for us. So at all other intersections kind of throughout the city and all their other places where we want to install traffic calming, it's going to be like, you know, speed humps or curb bump outs or whatever else we want to apply in those situations. And then it'll just be a matter of prioritizing and what money we get, whether we want to do the $5,000 temporary bump out or whether we want to do something more expensive. That's all going to be kind of on us. So I just want to make sure people are clear that like, you know, this isn't like the be all and end all of things. And there's still going to be prioritization. We still don't know if we're going to get the federal funding for these priority projects. So there's still going to be a lot of decisions to be made, including what to do in the really near term, which is why we as a mayor and council allocated $700,000 to this project so that we knew we'd have some funding to do something. What that something is, whether it's 31st where folks have had petitions, whether it's Bunker Hill where folks have filed petitions, both of which are part of this project process. Like, we just got to figure all that out.
Thank you. Anything else? No, you're good, Luke. Thank you.
I think
Dan, Jared, anything else to add?
Yeah. I'll just add, Luke, just to supplement what you had said, that this isn't the end all be all, and that there is a task later in this project for us to do a series of concept designs where we'll dig in and actually kind of figure out some details and show graphically what that looks like. The grant does not require that. And so we're front loading the action plan so that we can submit, so you can submit the grant, and then that concept stuff will align with the action plan, but will come after. And as Luke said, we're focusing, you know, rather than just picking one, focusing on 30th, 31st, and 34th, and trying to make all of those north-south connections better for everyone.
Jared, anything to add, or you're good?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to highlight what both Luke and Dan said. But yeah, we do have, you know, so we'll deadlines in July. We'll probably find out September, October. And there is, I mean, this is direct from the notice of funding. There is flexibility on site locations. But the important thing is that we have this comprehensive, holistic, well built out plan to be able to execute on. So that's what this that is what this process is. So, but yeah, thanks Luke and thanks Dan for the additional color there and context.
All right, perfect. Thank you guys. So we're down to the last four minutes of this discussion. I think it's been very clear that this is what we need right now to go after the grants. It's more of like the overview, and then the tiny like little detail work will come after. We wanted to make sure we show where the most needed areas were, and with a study in order for us to be able to improve our chances to be able to obtain this money. All right. So I'm gonna, since I have Luke and Jared, I think you guys already said your stated your piece on everything else you needed. Anything to add, Valerie or Danielle?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Danielle?
I'm good for now. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So we look forward to June, the June meeting then when it comes to, so thank you guys for putting this together. Members of the team, you know, we have our city manager, we do have our grant writer, we do have our co-director, public works, our chief. Everybody's basically working on making sure that the various departments have representation on this board, on the task force, to make sure they're looking at the various angles as much as they can to see if something is needed. Thank you to the police department. I know you guys also submitted a lot of information when it comes to the crashes around the area and in the city. So that definitely does help as well. But it's been an effort of like a lot of people working together to get us to where it needs to be. And now the second part is coming, you know, putting that application together. So we definitely are assembling a team to make sure we get every piece that is needed to apply on time to make sure we meet the deadline. As it was stated originally, when this proposal was put together, we had until the fall. So we had like time in nicely for the summer, you know, as we were like in recess to get this done. However, things change. So I want to thank the whole complete team for adjusting the timeline to make sure we meet the deadline to be able to apply. It was no easy task, but we definitely have the team to make it happen. And you guys rose to the occasion. And even for this report to be in front of us with 3-4 months being cut off like of the original plan that you guys thought you guys were going to have is very impressive. So thank you to Design for providing all this information and to the whole entire task force for making this happen as well. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay. So have a good night, Tool Design. Is the item number 4 is the discussion, the legislative meeting of the calendar FY 2024. This is not going to be a long discussion. Basically, you will be the clerk has submitted what the calendar is going to look like for FY 24 for our meeting. Look through it, examine it, make sure we don't crash into any important day that we might have. Our meetings are usually scheduled for the 1st and 3rd of the month on Tuesdays, the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of the month, from September all the way to the end of June. We occasionally have special meetings like the one we're having today. And also for the budget, we collect quite a few meetings, right? So I want you guys to take a look at it and see to make sure we don't run into things like we're putting a meeting on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, right? Things like that have, or something that has big symbolically notice. In the past, we have also made sure in the last few years, we also make sure that some of the very holidays are not there on the meetings from quite a few of the religions. So we've been pretty good at making sure we don't do that. The other thing is making sure that if it's a day after a 3-day holiday, a weekend or spring break, we take that meeting out because we want to make sure we respect time for council to ideally spend some family time with their family. Okay, so take a look at it, and we are gonna be bringing it up on the June meeting. So that's it. All right, so put it in the screen for a second, Pink, if it's there. If you don't have it, it's fine. They should have it in their package. If not, they'll get an email tomorrow. But this is my way of saying it. Please look at it so that way we don't we ideally approve something that we all could agree and move forward with. Okay, good. Yes. All right. So I'll give you homework basically. All right. So there you have it. As you see on November 7th. That's when our meeting is supposed to be happening, but that is election day. So we'll be moving our meeting to November 21st. All right. So just to give you an example of meetings that we move or, all right. Then you also have various day right there. Okay. So take a look at it, see if everything's fine. The other thing, take into account, if we are going to be adding what we usually do, add budget days to just discuss the budget. That also is going to have to be taken into account. All right. Okay. So let me review it and then figure out if there's something you guys want to bring to the meeting so that we could formalize it. All right. Any immediate questions? If not, I'm moving to adjournment. Wow, though you run at once.
Second.
All right. There's no motion on the floor.
Oh, I thought you said you were motioning. Okay, I'll motion.
Nope. There's no motion on the floor. I said if there's no other questions on this, we're moving to adjournment. Okay, hearing there is nothing else on this item. Pinky, you make sure you like resubmit it to all of us just as documents so they have it on right on top of their, because I know they're gonna go home and study it. Oh, they're home already. They're gonna go right before they go to bed, they'll study the whole calendar and memorize it, you know, that's how great it is. All right, thank you so much. All right, can you put the item on the screen? Okay, we do have a comment before that. It said, graduate incline the bridge to no steps. Steve Domain said, love the little circle idea. I got through a couple of the little circles in Tacoma Park. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Thank you, Steve, for that. All right, so moving on to item number 5, adjournment. Can I have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
It's been probably moved and second. Any discussion? Objections, abstentions? Hearing none, this meeting, this meeting has come to adjournment. And don't forget, the carnival for Mount Rainier Elementary is on the 2nd, on Friday. So everybody in the community is invited, and the yard sale is on Saturday. All right, and we look forward to see you guys soon. All right, have a good day. Bye. Thank you, team. I see Bing, Jared, Chief was also here. Build, let me see, Rocio, Kamali, Alma's also here. Oh, thank you guys. Have a good night. Thank you. Hopefully you guys can spend a very nice 3-day weekend. Okay, good night.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.